This is Archana from TSWRD CLB Nagar. Let me start the session with a small example here. We are suffering from the diseases and infections in our day-to-day life, right? What type of organisms are present in our surrounding environment? So we don't know what type of organisms are those. Some may be pathogenic, some may be non-pathogenic, and some microorganisms are present in our body, which will be called opportunistic organisms. But anyways, we are suffering from the diseases and infections in our regular life. When we suffer from infections or diseases, we'll go to doctor and doctor will suggest a prescription like antibiotic therapy. When we finish that, so if it will be cured, that's fine. But if it is not curing the particular infection or disease, so the doctor is going to here trying to diagnose the particular agent which is responsible for infection as well as disease. For that, he is going to suggest some tests like culture test as well as other serological tests. So we'll be going to a particular laboratory where they are going to process the culture. We'll be giving the culture there, and they'll be process the culture, and they'll be giving a report with results. So what are the results we are getting? Like they are going to study about the morphological studies of the organism, physiological studies of the organism, biochemical studies of the organism, as well as antibiotic sensitivity test also they are going to check. So by using all these characteristics, so doctor will prescribe a correct medication which will cure a specific disease. But this is happening with only few diseases and infections, not with all. But how it is possible? What is the basic thing we need to understand here? So after getting the growth only, now it is possible to know all these characteristics, isn't it? So let me start the session with the bacterial growth. What do you think about the bacterial growth? What is the difference between prokaryotes as well as eukaryotes? And there are different types of prokaryotes are there. But when we talk about the growth, in eukaryotes, the size of the cell will be increases. Whereas in eukaryotes, the number of cells, or as you can say that population will be increases. Let's have a look at this slide. In the eukaryotes, the size of the cell will be increases and parent cell will be retained for longer time, and the generation time takes a much time. Whereas in prokaryotes, parent cell gives rise to daughter cells within a short period of time. Whatever the daughter cells we are getting, so those will be participate in the next generation by acting as a parental cells. In the next generation, so whatever the daughter cells now we got, so these daughter cells so are going to participate in the next generation by acting as a parent cells. So that means here within a short period of time we are getting some lakhs of microorganisms and the generation time is very less. And there is no single and old parent cell which is not retaining in the case of prokaryotes. So due to the short generation time, as we are taking a prokaryotes are the study models for our research purpose to know the gene expression studies as well as to study the genetic models and for other research purposes also. And whatever the growth you are seeing on the slide, so that growth is called as exponential growth. So the growth rate is exponential, means it is going to here grow in the form of, we can identify by using 2 to the power of n. So 2 to the power of n is nothing but exponential growth rate. Now n is nothing but number of generations. For example, if we want to know the third generation, so whatever the number, whatever the generation now we want to calculate, we simply replace the n with that particular number. For example, if we want to derive a fourth generation, so then we can replace with the 2 to the power of 4n. So that will be giving a total number of cells in the fourth generation. Now, what are the modes of reproductive mechanisms are present in the prokaryotes? So, there are different modes of reproductive mechanisms are present, like a binary fission, budding, fragmentation, as well as conidiospores, and we have many other also. But we can't say there is a unique mechanism is present. Let us have a look on the slide. The binary fission is the mechanism majorly present in all the prokaryotes. Budding is present in microorganisms like a bacteria. Rhodomicrobium is the best example under this. Coming to the fragmentation is another mode of reproductive mechanism present in actinomycetes as well as in cyanobacteria, where the bacteria is in a filamentous shape. Conidiospores, it is another type of reproductive mechanism which we can see in the prokaryotes. So, it is stating that in prokaryotes only asexual reproduction mechanism is present. There is an absence of sexual reproduction mechanism. But in all the prokaryotes, the major mechanism is binary fission. In binary fission, one parent cell gives rise to two daughter cells. Whereas in budding, parent cell gives rise to your daughter cell by forming a bud on its surface. Whenever it gets matured, so that will come out, that will separate from the parent cell, and which will be acting as a your parent cell again will be participate in the next generation. Whereas in fragmentation, filamentous type of bacteria, so is going to here giving a involved in the fragmentation mechanism. So those fragments get separates, and so these will be acting as a parental cells. So coming to the conidiospores, this is also actually conidiospores as well as fragmentation. So these two are majorly we can see with the fungi. But here some microorganisms like a bacteria also showing these characteristics. So like actinomycetes is going to form a conidiospores. So whenever it is here exhibiting like a filamentous shape, so at the end of the filamentous shape, now it is going to form a oval shaped structures. Whenever these oval shaped structures get separates, so this will be here whenever these exposed to favorable conditions will be giving rise to a new cell. So exactly in a similar way, so the bacteria specifically in prokaryotes we can see different types of reproductive modes which will participate in the here increasing its generation. As well as here we can see one more type of reproductive mechanism, parasexual reproduction mechanism in prokaryotes. It is not true sexual reproduction mechanism, it's a parasexual reproduction mechanism. So it is also known as which can see in the recombinant DNA technology we can use due to the presence of this parasexual reproduction mechanism. Now let us discuss about the major mechanism which can participate in the increasing its generation. So the major mechanism is binary fission. In this binary fission, whatever the cell participates in the binary fission, first of all, it is going to here synthesize some molecules. That means the cell, it is preparing itself to participate in the cell division. So what are the steps which are involving in this preparation? What are the steps which are involving in this binary fission? In the first step, the macromolecules like DNA, carbohydrates, whatever the proteins, whatever the amino acids, so whatever the apparatus which are required to divide the cell completely synthesized in the first stage. Coming to the second stage, the DNA will be copied. After DNA copied, that there is a cell membrane as well as cell wall synthesis takes place in the opposite directions exactly at the midpoint of the parent cell. Now these two will extend in opposite direction and will form a barrier or cross wall. So this leads to separate two daughter cells. So whenever it will get here separate, which gives rise to two daughter cells. And this is completely we can see in one generation. But whenever these daughter cells participate in second generation, will be acting as a parent cells and will be gives rise to 4 cells. Why? Because this is exponential growth rate we can see with the prokaryotes. As we understood how the binary fission takes place in prokaryotes, that's fine. But is it possible to grow the prokaryotes in laboratory? Yes, it is possible to grow the prokaryotes, specifically bacteria or any type of organism in the laboratory. So when we supply with the proper nutrients to the particular organism. Here also, how we are eating a food like in the form of carbohydrates, like amino acids, proteins, minerals, vitamins, exactly in the similar way there are some components, there are some elements which are required by each and every bacteria, so we need to mix and we need to supply to that particular organism like carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, etc. So whenever we supply with the nutrients, so that microorganism happily can grow in that condition, and which will be participate in the generations and increase its number. But what are the phases which are occurring during its lifetime? That completely depending upon the nutrients availability. First of all, we have to know what type of growth patterns we will be seeing when we add nutrients to the microorganisms. There are two types of cultures we'll be getting. So when we add the nutrients continuously, so that will be giving continuous culture. If we add the nutrients only once, so that will be giving a batch culture. So there are two types of cultures. Batch cultures takes place in closed system, whereas continuous culture, so basically in this continuous culture here only we are going to see two phases, whereas in batch culture we can see more number of phases. If we want to study about the microorganisms, if we want to study about the bacteria, we are going to choose batch culture. So now let us see about the batch culture. So have a look on this slide. So there are four phases occur during its lifetime, in batch culture. Lag phase is the first phase, log phase, stationary phase, death phase. Coming to the lag phase, so you see lag phase is the first phase of its life cycle. Now during lag phase, the cell is preparing to divide. During exponential phase, once it starts division, it is going to increase its number. Drastical increase we can see in the log phase. Whenever it enters into stationary phase, so it will be standardized. So there you can see dead cells is equal to viable cells. Now if the situation continues, so the curve will be entered into death phase. So what exactly is happening in each phase? So exactly similar way when we change our place or when we shift from intermediate to degree first year, so we'll be taking some time to adjust towards some conditions which are present in the that particular college or teaching faculty or with friends, isn't it? So that is depending upon our mental status. So it takes some time or more time. Exactly in a similar way, the bacteria also is taking some time to adapt towards the conditions which are present in the environment. Soon after entry into the nutrients, so it starts utilizing the nutrients. But during lag phase, we can't see the physical changes. Why? Because during this phase, it is in active condition but metabolically active condition. Now once it starts utilization, once it starts divide, then that will be enter into log phase. But the length of the lag phase, so which depends on age of the culture. So what is mean by age of the culture? Age of the culture. If you are taking the culture for example 18 hours or 16 hours, so that will be young culture. If you are taking a 5 days old culture or 1 week old culture, so that will be your old culture. So depending upon age, so we'll be having two types of cultures. One is young culture and second one is old culture. Young culture is in active condition and old culture is in here somewhat here these are in dormant phase, inactive phase. So it is taking some time to adapt towards that conditions. But once it is adapted, then it will be here raising its population. So that will be enter into your exponential phase. This log phase, also known as exponential phase, where we can see the exponential growth. As already I have discussed about how we can identify the exponential growth. Now in this exponential growth, as we can see here, the number of cells will be increases. At the same time, some components will be here synthesized by the bacteria. So those components are called as primary metabolites. And these primary metabolites are here growth dependent substances. Growth dependent substances. So these are growth dependent substances will be utilized by the bacteria. Again, these are not harmful to the bacteria. These are helping to the survival of the bacteria. And what are the examples under this? Amino acids, proteins like peptides and other like organic acids, vitamins, all these coming under growth dependent metabolites. That's the reason this is also known as trophophase. This is also known as trophophase. As we can see in the stationary phase, there is an importance. Now, if we want any organism in exponential phase, we are going to arrest that phase and will be taking that culture and will be using for our purpose. So, when we go to stationary phase, now here, as the population increases, there is a nutrient will be limiting factor. Due to that, some microorganisms, some bacteria will get the nutrients, will survive. Some bacteria won't get the nutrients, will not survive, will die automatically. So that's the reason. So this in this stationary phase, viable cells will become equal to dead cells. Viable cells will become equal to dead cells. In this condition, whatever the cells which are there, so these will stop, divide, then will try to protect themselves during that connection. So these are going to synthesize some compounds. So those are called as secondary metabolites. And these secondary metabolites are growth independent substances. So these will not utilized by the microorganisms in the culture, and these are going to inhibit the growth of another bacteria. And in these secondary metabolites, examples, antibiotics, toxins, alkaloids, etc. If we want any toxin, then we are going to stop this, we are going to arrest this phase, then we'll be using for our purpose. So when the situation will be continuous, so the toxic substances will be accumulate more in this phase. Due to the accumulation of more toxic substances will help to kill other microorganisms, and the cells will be enter into decline phase. Whenever the cells enter into decline phase, some cells will try to protect themselves, so by producing heat shock proteins called chaperones. Heat shock proteins called chaperones. So these chaperones are trying to protect the DNA from damage for some time. These are heat shock proteins will protect the DNA from damage. And some bacteria in this phase are going to produce autolysins. These autolysins which helps to lyse them, the bacteria, themselves they are going to lyse by releasing these autolysins. And some bacteria we have are going to synthesize some additional components around its cell wall, and it will try to protect themselves. So those are capsules. If we want capsulated organism in this, or if we want a capsule, now we are going to collect the culture from this phase. So each and every phase in this here, which is very, very important in our regular life. Why? Because now whatever we need from the organism, then we are going to choose a particular phase according to our necessity, then we'll be process it and will be here taking that particular substances from that organism culture. When we plot the graph by taking number of cells on y-axis and time on x-axis, the plot will be sigmoid shape, or your S-shape curve will be getting. These are the different phases we can see during the lifetime of bacteria soon after entry into the media. But this is only in batch culture, not in continuous culture. If we talk about continuous culture, only two phases occur. Those are lag phase and log phase. When we discuss about other types of culture, now we can see here many applications, but depending upon our necessity, we are going to choose a type of culture. But this is a general pattern we can see with all the prokaryotes, right? We have seen something about the division pattern of the bacteria, and what are the phases occur in the bacteria during its lifetime. But see, simply we have sufficient food, everything is sufficient vegetables, fruits, everything is there at home. But if we don't have water, air, sunlight, can we survive? No, we can't survive. Exactly in a similar way, bacteria also needs some factors for its growth. Not only nutrients, so we need to supply with some factors, we need to arrange with some factors. Exactly, here some factors I have listed. Let us have a look on this slide, and these are the important factors which I have listed majorly affecting the bacterial growth. Solute and water activity, temperature, pH, oxygen requirement, pressure, as well as radiations. Along with this, we have more factors also are there, but these are the important factors which are affecting the bacterial growth. Let us see one by one. Solute and water activity, how these factors are affecting the bacterial growth. When we talk about the solute, if the solute concentration is high in the environment, so that automatically here leak out the water content from the cell. Why? Because there is a difference in its concentration gradient. So that will be here leads to shrinkage the plasma membrane from the capsule, which leads to cause plasmolysis. Now in this condition, the cell is going to destroy. If the solute concentration is low, if the solute concentration is high in the surrounding environment, leads to cause plasmolysis. But if the solute concentration is low in the surrounding environment, now that will be leads to cause plasmolysis. Now what happens when the solute concentration is low in the surrounding environment? So this will allow the water into the cytoplasm of this cell. Now by expanding its plasma membrane, it leads to destroy the cell. Now burst, specifically we can say burst of the cell. Now that's the reason this is called as plasmolysis. That means here solute concentration is majorly affecting the bacterial activity along with the water. If I give an example by taking a one NaCl, if we take this NaCl, some bacteria can tolerate 6.5 to 8% NaCl. Some bacteria can tolerate 8 to 15% NaCl concentration. Some bacteria can tolerate 15 to 30% NaCl concentration. Now, the bacteria which are tolerating this percentage of NaCl will be considered as halotolerant. Halotolerant. And the bacteria which will tolerate this concentration, now these will be holophiles. Now, the bacteria which are tolerating this concentration is your extreme halophiles. Extreme halophiles or extremophiles. Now, with these two types of organisms, that's fine. But here with this category, now we need to discuss. Why? Because this is extreme condition. Now you can say that this is unfavorable conditions for the growth. Now in this condition, now these extreme halophiles are going to adapted with some mechanisms. Now whereas halotolerant example is Staphylococcus aureus, which is responsible for food poisoning. Now halophiles, the example under this is Vibrio hemolyticus, which is responsible for seafood poisoning. At the same time, extreme halophiles, so majorly will be involving in many applications. As I can say the examples, Halobacter and Halococcus. So these are using in biopolymer synthesis, as well as we can use in bioremediation also. At the same time, how it is adapted with the mechanisms, how it is showing resistance towards unfavorable conditions. Now there is a salt concentration is high anyways, right? It is going to tolerate high salt concentration. So there are two strategies which are present in this extreme halophiles. So those are, one is high salt in strategy and second one is low salt compatible solute. Compatible solute. Now whereas in high salt in strategy, the solute concentration inside is very high, will become isotonic, which will be your resistance here to osmosis. And in terms of here maintenance, it is going to maintain the function as well as structure of the cell. At the same time, low salt compatible solute, now in this compatible organic solute, also known as osmoprotectant. This osmoprotectant is going to regulate the osmosis. At the same time, one more mechanism also we have in this. Now here some proteins which are present in its cell wall, and these proteins are going to exhibit a negative charge, and this negative charge is going to bind with Na+ ions. So like this, it is going to here, this is nothing but a modified membrane which also protect from the high salt concentration and maintain same conditions inside the cell and will continue its metabolic activities. So let us have a look on this slide. This is stating that solute as well as water, which are necessary elements for the bacteria to lead a happy life. We can also measure the water activity of the organisms by using a formula, as well as here we can give a water activity index. So that is calculated by taking the ratio of osmotic pressure of solution to that of pure water. And the water activity, solute and water activity of one organism to other organism which are completely differentiating. Here I have listed some solute water activity, like water activity index. When we take a bacteria, the water activity index is 0.91. When we take a yeast, water activity index is 0.85, 0.8 for moles, as well as halophilic bacteria is having 0.75 water activity index. Xerophilic bacteria 0.65, osmophilic bacteria is having 0.6. So like this, every organism has its own solute concentration as well as water activity. So it requires its own concentration. So at that particular point only it will show a optimum growth and will gives rise to a optimum culture as well as, so whatever we need, so we will get it. So the another important factor in this is temperature. Now based on temperature, here we have different types of organisms are present. Let us have a look on this slide. Basically 4 types of microorganisms are there: psychrophiles, mesophiles, psychrophiles, mesophiles, thermophiles, hyperthermophiles. When we talk about the psychrophiles, so this will be here ranging from, it's around -10 to 20 degrees Celsius. Here mesophiles ranging from around 10 degrees Celsius to here 40 degrees, and thermophiles ranging from 45 degrees Celsius to around 80 degrees Celsius. Hyperthermophiles ranging from around 65 degrees Celsius to 110 degrees Celsius. But these are cardinal temperatures. But when we talk about the temperature, how it is in affecting the growth of the bacteria. Now, whenever we raise 10 degrees Celsius temperature, it will double the catalytic property of the enzyme. Here, when the catalytic property will double, automatically that will be here enhances the metabolic activity of the cell, and that will also help to increase its growth, isn't it? Exactly. Here we have only one optimum temperature which will support for its optimum growth. So for our psychrophiles, the optimum temperature is 10. So for mesophiles, the optimum temperature is 35 to 37 degrees Celsius. For thermophiles, the optimum temperature is 60 to 65 degrees Celsius, and hyperthermophiles optimum growth we can see at 90 to 95 degrees Celsius. Now, whenever the temperature raises above optimum degrees, so that will be damage the plasma membrane by solubilizing its lipids, as well as, so it is also affecting the enzymatic property. That means here it is going to affect on function as well as structure of the cell. So when we raise the temperature above optimum levels, so that will be destroy the cell. And another important point in this here, hyperthermophiles. So these hyperthermophiles coming under here majorly archaebacteria. In this hyperthermophiles majorly which we are using in research studies. Why? Because here majorly this will be having adaptation mechanisms. So like exhibiting pseudo peptidoglycans with beta-1,3 linkage, N-acetyl glucosamine as well as N-acetyl talosamine acid is present. GC content is very high, which will be providing resistance, and some microorganisms are going to synthesize slime layer which will be giving protection to the cell from the fluctuations of in the factors in the environment. And some microorganisms are there here, so will be completely using carbon, nitrogen, sulfur as a sources for its food preparation. Like you can say that here chemotrophic mode of nutrition we can see in the hyperthermophiles. and this is not by other bacteria. Absolutely. Now these are the adaptation mechanisms are present in hyperthermophiles. The best example under this is here Thermus aquaticus. Hyperthermophiles is Bacillus styrothermophilus. Now Bacillus styrothermophilus is we are using as an indicator of autoclaving. Now the best example under this is psychrophiles is Pseudomonas. This Pseudomonas is going to cause many skin infections, and under mesophiles human pathogens all coming under mesophilic organisms, and under this example is E. coli, responsible for diarrhea and urinary tract infections. And under thermophiles the example Thermus aquaticus, where it is using in the synthesis of Taq polymerase, where we are using in PCR. Another important factor is pH. When we talk about the pH, and it is very, very important, which is used to measure relative acidity of the solution. So when we plot the graph with growth rate on y-axis, pH on x-axis, we can see the ranges of acidophiles, neutrophils and alkaliphiles. So based on pH ranges, we can divide the bacteria into 3 types: acidophiles, neutrophils, alkaliphiles, depending upon their capabilities, depending upon their pH ranges. Here now we can use for our applications. Coming to the acidophiles, so these are also having some adaptation mechanisms, like it is going to maintain its acidic pH by using a pump called potassium proton pump. This potassium proton pump, this is nothing but here antipotar mechanism. Now this is coming under active transport. Now protons will be going outside. Now when at the same time potassium ions will be pumping inside the cell. So this is the mechanism which is used to maintain acidic conditions in the acidophiles. Now coming to the neutrophils. Now under this acidophiles, the example is sulfolobus. Sulfolobus is a sulfur oxidizing microorganism which we are using in biogeochemical cycle called as sulfur cycle. So coming to the neutrophils, now these neutrophils are growing in the neutrophilic pH, that is 5.5 to 8.5. The pH of acidophile is 0 to 5.5. Now under neutrophile, the example is E. coli. As I said, this is responsible for many infections, as we can say that this is a normal flora of the human body. Now coming to the alkalifile, and these alkaliphiles also are having some adaptation mechanisms which will be here resisting towards stress conditions, and the ranging from 7.5 to here 14, but here I have mentioned here around 12. And here alkaliphiles are having adapting with some mechanisms like passive regulation as well as active regulation. Coming to the passive regulation, here in this it is going to change its membrane permeability. So that will allow the passage of only few protons inside or outside. Here in this case, active regulation, now it is going to use a pump called sodium proton pump. This is also antipotar mechanism which is coming under active transport. Now these sodium ions will expel out and protons will be here in. So this is the pump which is used to maintain here alkaline condition inside the cell, will continue the biochemical activities inside the cell. Now in this, the best example is Vibrio cholera. it can survive at it's around 8.2. Here another important factor is oxygen availability. Now in this oxygen availability, we can say that we can't live without oxygen, isn't it? But we have some bacteria can survive in the absence of oxygen. It is not necessary for prokaryotes. Now based on oxygen, basically as we know, only aerobes and anaerobes, but there are different types of microorganisms are there based on oxygen requirement. Now coming to the first one is obligate aerobe, and this obligate aerobe is nothing but a strict aerobic organism. It cannot survive in the absence of oxygen. It needs oxygen. As you can see the growth at the top of the tube, isn't it? Example under this is Pseudomonas. As I said, Pseudomonas is responsible for many skin infections. And the second one is obligate anaerobes. So these obligate anaerobes will be survive in the absence of oxygen. Strict anaerobes, facultative anaerobes, so these can survive in the presence of oxygen as well as in the absence of oxygen. Now we can see the growth in inside the tube as well as on the surface of tube. Aerotolerant anaerobes, and these will require a small, these can tolerate the oxygen, can survive by tolerating oxygen. As you can see the growth throughout the test tube. Now microaerophile, these will require a small amount of oxygen. Under this the best example is here Treponema pallidum. Under obligate aerobes, Pseudomonas, obligate anaerobes, here Clostridium, responsible for colon infections. E. coli is coming under facultative anaerobes, which is responsible for, as I said, it is the urinary tract infections. So aerotolerant anaerobes, Streptococci pyogenes, which are responsible for cellulitis, pharyngitis, tonsillitis, like a scarlet fever, etc. When we go to Treponema pallidum, it is able to cause sexually transmitted disease, that is syphilis. Exactly what is happening in this, how it is related to the growth, how it is going to affect on the growth of bacteria. So when we see the mechanism, whenever the O2 crosses the cell membrane, now this membrane is having oxidase. So this oxidase is going to convert this oxygen to superoxide, and this superoxide, with the help of superoxide dismutase, it is going to convert into H2O2. Then in the presence of catalase enzyme, so it is going to convert into H2O plus O2. Now exactly, so these are the enzymes are present in the aerobic organisms and absent in the case of anaerobic organisms. That's the reason, due to the presence of these here, aerobes can survive, and due to the absence of these anaerobes, when these will expose to oxygen will be here die. Why? Because this is a superoxide is a strong oxidizing agent which will kill the microorganism by showing its toxicity. So another important factor is pressure. When we talk about the pressure, so it is going to affect on membrane fluidity. Based on the pressure, now we can divide the microorganisms into borotolerant and borophilic organisms, and these are generally present in the sea. So where the depth from 100 to 400 we can call it as, from the sea level we can call it as borotolerant. From 400 to 700 we can call it as here borophiles. From 700 to here 1000 we can call it as extreme borophile. So due to the presence of unsaturated fatty acids, so these will be resisting towards those conditions, and where we can use this photobacteria and Shevanella we can use in the bioremediation process. And another important factor is radiation. And as we know, the natural source for radiation is sunlight, which is having many number of rays, are exhibiting many different wavelengths, like infrared rays, gamma rays, X-rays, ultraviolet rays, as well as waves. These depending upon its function, we can divide into two types of radiations, ionizing radiations as well as non-ionizing radiations. ionizing radiations are going to kill the microorganisms by the process called ionization. Non-ionizing radiations are going to kill the microorganisms by causing a mutations, as you can say that is going to damage the DNA. Ionizing radiations by breaking hydrogen bonds as well as oxidizing double bonds, destroying ring structures, causes polymerization. So these are going to kill the organisms. As we can say that infrared rays are a major space occupied, responsible for Earth's heat. As here visible rays, so can be utilized by the photosynthetic microorganisms for its here photosynthesis mechanism. And here we have we got some information about the bacteria, but in which form we are going to supplement with the nutrients. So we need to prepare the growth media by mixing all the nutrients, isn't it? So the growth media is nothing but it is a preparation of nutrients that support the growth of microorganisms. But what is the importance of this growth media? As you can see the slide, so which is used to study the morphological characteristics, cultural characteristics, biochemical characteristics, physiological characteristics, and genetical studies. So for all these we can use this growth media. And how many types of growth medias are there? So basically, so there are 3 types of growth medias are there. So depending upon here a general composition, we can divide into 3 types. That is, as you can see the slide, liquid medium, solid medium, semi-solid medium. Coming to the liquid medium, there is no agar-agar. First of all, we have to know what is meant by agar-agar. It is extracted from red algae called Gelidium or Gracilaria. Now we can prepare from this, and it is introduced by Robert Koch but basically found by Frau Hesse. And when we add 1.5 to 2% agar-agar will be solid medium, as you can see this slide, this structure. Now as you can see the liquid medium, this is the liquid medium, semi-solid medium is having 0.5% agar-agar. Then how many types of medias are available? That is these 3 types are based on consistency, as you can see. But basically based on composition, now we have 3 types of medias. It's a basal media, synthetic media, semi-synthetic media. Here I have listed only 2 medias. But basal media is a general purpose media we can use for all the bacteria. And synthetic media is a chemically defined medium. Under this example is Zepadox agar. This Zepadox medium is used to here grow all the types of fungi. Semi-synthetic medium is undefined medium, and under this is potato dextrose agar, and this is partial chemical composition is present in the semi-synthetic media. Under this potato dextrose agar is also here general purpose media for fungi, and also we can list here Meckenki agar. As we have one more type of media, that is special media. Under this special medias we have different types of medias like enriched media, enrichment media, selective media. Now here indicator media, differential media, transport media. As you can see in enriched media, we are enriching with the nutrients like blood, serum, tissue extracts. Examples under this is blood agar, chocolate agar. Enriched media, under this example blood agar, I have given a picture here. You can see the picture. Enrichment media, if we want to grow a desirable microorganisms, we are going to facilitate with the favorable conditions. If we want to grow undesirable microorganisms, we are going to facilitate with the undesirable or unfavorable conditions. As you can see, selenite F broth, alkaline peptone water under these examples. Selective media, it is selective towards a specific organism. Under these examples, mannitol salt agar, EMB agar. So mannitol salt agar is for Staphylococcus, EMB agar for E. coli. As you can see, indicator media, by using some indications we can identify the microorganism. Under this example, Christensen's urease medium, under this the positive result you can see in the picture, it's a pink color, yellow color is a negative test. Differential media is used to differentiate the bacteria. As you can say that here it is going to differentiate into groups. Blood agar and Meckenki agar, these are 2 examples of differential media. Meckenki agar is going to differentiate into two groups, lactose fermenting microorganisms, non-lactose fermenting microorganisms. As you can say, the transport medium. So this is transport medium is used to transport as well as preserve the cultures to the laboratory where all the equipments are available. Under this example, Stott's medium as well as Amy's medium. So these transport media we can use majorly in laboratories. Okay. Now these are the different medias. According to our necessity, our purpose, we are going to select a specific medias. That's fine. We have seen something about the binary fission, something about the different types of reproductive mechanisms, and we have seen a bacterial growth curve. How the bacterial growth curve? What are the factors affecting the bacterial growth curve? What are the adaptation mechanisms are showing to resist towards unfavorable conditions? Now it's time for your activity. When you go back to college, just prepare the nutrient agar and let it solidify. Now after solidification, you press your palm on the nutrient agar and leave it for incubation period. As you can see, after incubation period, then you will feel a very like a anxiety to know type of microorganisms, whatever the present on your palm. As you can see your result after incubation period in this slide. Now it's a time to end the session, but I just want to tell you something about here the ubiquitous nature of microorganisms. So these microorganisms are present in our surrounding environment. As you can say that the major media is human body. Human body is the reservoir of the micro reservoir which help to grow maximum here all the types of microorganisms which are discovered at only 1% of microorganisms are discovered at 99% microorganisms yet to be discovered. So we have to remember, so everyone is saying we have to wash our hands for every half an hour. But if we take it is for habitual, then it will be protect our body from not only from COVID-19, from all the infections as well as diseases. So everyone is saying that vaccine will come, but when the vaccine will come, we don't know. Why? Because it is taking much time. So it is approximately, it will take 18 months time. As we need to understand, if anything want to introduce into the market, so it should be undergo some trials. So in those trials, there are 4 phases are there, but before 4 phases, now we need to here go for preclinical trials. So it is taking some 18 months to 19 months to conclude these trials. So in each and every trials, so we'll be giving answers to a particular questions. So in each and every trial, so we need to check the safety and efficacy of the disease or infection. So that's the reason, and it is very, very important, and the situation is unpredictable. So we need to stay aware of the information which is available in the WHO website. The world of microorganisms will never end, but I would like to conclude this session. Thank you one and all.